You've tried marketing campaigns, you've tried every algorithm hack under the sun, and still your business isn't growing from all that time you're spending on LinkedIn. I've got a pretty good idea what's happening, and in today's episode, I'm going to share why. G'day everyone, it is Coach Michelle J. Raymond, your trusted guide for building your brand and your business on LinkedIn. And one of the things that happens to me, because I'm pretty narrowed in on my niche that I target and the types of clients that I work with, is I often end up having very similar conversations with very different people spread all over the world throughout the week. And in this case, the same thing kept happening over and over and over again. And I was thinking, I think I really need to do a podcast episode on this, because what is happening out there is I'm talking to marketing people who are responsible for executing the LinkedIn strategy that they've created, and they're pulling their hair out because the sales team isn't doing what they should be, or the other, team members that are meant to be involved. And it feels like everyone's going every which way. And then you've got the sales team that are scratching their head going, why are the marketing team creating this campaign? You've then got employees who are, part of the employee advocacy program, and they're busting their chops, but then wondering, why isn't the leadership team involved in this, and why are they doing all the work? And so what's happening is there's a lot of effort going on LinkedIn. Everybody's working hard, and then there's no results, no ROI, and people are left wondering, is this really worth it? And is LinkedIn just one big waste of time? You know my answer. No, it's not, but it really is if you don't fix this problem. If all of this sounds really familiar, then let's take a look at where the disconnect is happening and what are the signs and symptoms you should look out for. Do any of these things sound familiar to you? Is there a business-wide strategy for LinkedIn, or do individual teams have their own strategies? If the answer is there isn't a business-wide one, well, I'm pretty sure you're smart enough to know where this is heading. Within those strategies that you have in place, are there conflicting KPIs? And quite often, this is a big one where one team is measured on one thing, e.g. it could be brand awareness, and then another team is measured on something different, e.g. lead gen. So the classic sales versus marketing, that happens often because no one from both teams has ever sat in a room and said, this is our goals, this is how we're going to get there, and work together as a team. Another classic one that I come across all the time is that marketing has no idea what sales is working on. They don't know who the primary targets are for the sales team, who are the really hot leads that they're working on, that with a little bit of a nudge, they could get them across the line. They don't know what customers they're no longer focusing on, or maybe that there's, target industries, because the sales team created their strategy and the marketing team have their own, which is focused on different KPIs, like I was just saying. And then there's a classic when the company page itself feels like it's on a completely different planet to everybody else that's active on LinkedIn. Now, employee advocacy, we know how great it is. I'm a huge fan. But even when that is executed without everybody being on the same page, and by everybody, I mean the company page as well, then ultimately you've got another big disconnect. It's that whole push-pull, like where should we be focusing our attention? One of the symptoms that this is all breaking down is that employees who may have started to post in the beginning, who were really keen about being a part of your employee advocacy programs, all of a sudden they vanish off the face of the earth and nothing you seem to do gets people active. They are some of the key symptoms that I come across when everything's breaking down. And the real question that we should be asking ourselves is, how do we get everybody on the same page without turning it into more red tape? Because the more rules and regulations that we put in place, the harder it is for people to actually take action. And that is the last thing that we want. So let's take a look at that next. When you think about it, if LinkedIn is feeling like a huge time and resource strain in your business and you're not generating an ROI, we know that they're the clear symptoms, but what is the answer? Like, that is why you are here today, listeners. And I think the simple answer to this is alignment. And I often talk about it in the context of the power of two, i.e., you get better results when things work together. So whether that's sales and marketing, whether it's company page and employee advocacy, whether it's employees and business leaders, all of these ways that we can bring in the power of two within your LinkedIn strategy where people work together will give you faster results and ultimately cut down the amount of time and energy that these programs take and generate the ROI that justifies them existing in the first place. And this is what we all want. We all want to see a return on the time and effort that we're putting into LinkedIn. But without having a strategy around the power of two and bringing everybody into alignment, honestly, you'll feel like it's just an internal tug of war. Don't even worry about what's going on over on LinkedIn and the algorithm and all the other crazy things that are going on there. You're too busy fighting your own internal battles, even if you don't realize it yourself. So the power of two is something that I want to bring back to people. We spoke about it in the LinkedIn branding book. You have to build personal brands and company brands together. What is it that I think that you can do to really put some things in place to make sure that your team's working together? Here are the practical tips that I think will help you align your teams within your business to help you grow from all of that effort that you're putting into LinkedIn. And first of all, I think it always starts at the top. Leadership teams, you set the tone by showing up. You set the tone by showing that it's important to your business, that it is a priority and the right amount of resources will be allocated to the program. Everybody's looking to you for guidance and they will copy what actions you are taking. So if you are invisible on LinkedIn, chances are your team will then say, well, if it's okay for you, it's okay for them as well. Because at the end of the day, they probably think they're not as important as you. So we have to start at the top. Now, B2B marketing teams, it is important for you to understand that providing frameworks to other teams to follow and learn and messaging guidelines is really important. And if you go back to last week's episode, if you missed it, we were talking about not assuming that LinkedIn is easy. So many people think that it's as simple as write a few sentences, throw up a graphic, post, and we're done. And it really isn't. It is so much more complicated than that. Now, the teams that I work with, when we implement my growth framework, they all then know what they should be working on, what actions are going to make a difference. Why? Because the very first step in the growth framework, so the G, stands for game plan. None of my clients, after we finish training, are allowed to go past onto all of those other steps, like creating content, before they have actually sat down together across the business and worked out what are the resources, what are we focusing on, and what is it that we will measure to know that we're successful during this program. And that involves having multiple teams have a say. It is not I am the head of marketing, so therefore everybody should listen, or vice versa, the sales team, you can't do that either. It is about coming together. This is where the better results come from. The same applies if you are running the company page for your company and you are in competition internally with the employee advocacy team. This blows my mind. This is happening all the time. And people are super frustrated and they're wondering, like, what is going on? Why don't we talk to each other? And again, sometimes the most simple thing is sitting in a room and figuring out what is important to both teams and how can you work together to get there. That is the essence of this power of two LinkedIn strategy. Now, you can help other teams by building confidence with them and helping them with training and templates and making sure that everybody has those guidelines. A good social media policy can actually, not be red tape. It can actually come across as clear guardrails for people to stay within, to take actions without having to check all of the time. Set people up for success, invest in their success. Training is the obvious answer because it makes sure that you are not assuming where people's knowledge is or isn't at, and the whole team can grow together. Now, we also, I would say, need to have shared KPIs across some of these teams, like brand metrics that apply to everybody so that everybody wins. And I have seen this play out even in some bigger marketing teams that we don't even get to talk about what's going on externally versus their competitors because the teams are so big that internally there's a struggle. And that could be from global marketing teams versus regional. That could be product marketing teams versus go-to marketing teams versus field marketing teams. Like there are so many teams that look after the umbrella term of marketing that is then broken down, but in conflict because you've all got different KPIs. So of course, then we start fighting over what should be posted. Why aren't you posting my stuff? And it's awful. Like it really is. The other flip side to that is often nobody owns things like the company page. It is everybody doing whatever they want. And the results make the brand look like it has multiple personalities. So I want you to think about who is it that you could have in a room that as a business, you could sit down and work out what are our priorities over the next quarter? Who is it that we're targeting? What is the main product or service that we'll be promoting? And how will we all work with our content and our actions to build community to get the business towards those goals? I've just given you a whole bunch of tips that are mostly focused on improved communication to bring your team into alignment. But before we wrap up, here's what happens when you don't do this. If you really want your business to grow from the efforts that your business is making on LinkedIn, having alignment within your teams is a must. Because if you don't, here's what happens. You will miss out on opportunities from inconsistent messaging. Employees won't feel empowered, so there's going to be less employee advocacy. Your competitors who are aligned are literally going to steal things out from underneath you. And listeners, that I'm fiercely competitive, and this one really presses my buttons because the more teams are aligned, the more they work together, the better results that they will get from their time spent on LinkedIn. If all of this sounds really overwhelming to you for your business, then don't forget you can do things like outsourcing to companies like mine, where we do company page management. And also we can create a strategy that works across your business and facilitate these conversations. You don't have to do it all yourself. I know the struggle is real. I don't expect anybody out there that has got the title of, say, marketing manager or sales leader or any of these job titles to know LinkedIn inside out like I do. That is exactly why my business exists, so I can fast track your success. And bringing your team into alignment is one of my special skills that I think makes all the difference. And I've seen it with my clients. When we get on the same page, then all of a sudden where the growth has stalled, it takes off again. And it just is amazing to watch. It then becomes a much easier process, and LinkedIn goes back to being enjoyable, but most importantly, generates that ROI that businesses are looking for. You don't grow on LinkedIn by doing more. You grow on LinkedIn by working together. So until next week, cheers.